and then I'll share my screen. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Macy Ring. I'm an Education Abroad Coordinator with the UCR Education Abroad Office under International Affairs. Today, we'll be talking about research opportunities that students have taken in our faculty-led Education Abroad program, FLEAP, in 2019. Our wonderful student panelists today are Julianne Renata, Anna Rogers, Samuel Kong, Chelsea Davenport, Stephanie Lynn Marciano, and they traveled to and studied and researched in various places throughout the world. And without further ado, we'll just go down the line here and ask our students a series of questions. So Stephanie, please go ahead. Okay, I think Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi.
About that. You can hear me now. Okay, yes, thank you, Macy. So I went to the London trip last summer with Professor Eckett, and it was a history program. So we had a lot of studying in London specifically. We did research starting from Londinium with Rome all the way to Brexit, including going to a House of Commons, meeting at Parliament and hearing them debate different issues for Brexit. A lot of my research was based on societal changes, and one thing that was really important was I got to go to these, merchant homes, and I got to see locations that I would not have been able to see if I was sitting in a classroom or looking through JSTOR. That was really, really important. And my research that I started there led me to passion that I'm continuing with my current professor. What types of problems did I face? I faced money issues only because I didn't budget quite well enough. So make sure that you budget. There are great opportunities in London. They have great meal deals, which is like less than $5 a meal. And, just don't eat out every night, that sort of thing. And when it comes to purchasing things for your family or taking things with you, I would suggest kind of making sure you have enough money for that, because a lot of my classmates, we ran out. So we didn't get to get as much as we wanted for our families. And then what was the impact? So a lot of what I learned was about kind of like living with other people. I'd never lived in the dorms before. And so I really got to appreciate my classmates and what it was to get to know my classmates really, really well. It's an intimate setting. And also my professor, you get to have a connection with them that is unique. It's very difficult to kind of have that relationship outside of that experience. I would just really encourage everybody, if you can do it, please go. It's not like vacation. You have an opportunity to see things in person, and you've got an expert with you. My professor is so knowledgeable, and when we were at Tower of London, there were people there who, were living and breathing and working in the tower, and there's absolutely nothing like that in books. You cannot compare the two. So yeah, those are the kind of experiences that I had. It was a great experience, and I wish I could go again. I joke with my classmates that we should just go and shadow our professor if he ever does it again, because we would never do that. But it's just a great experience. We all wanted it to last longer, and yeah. So definitely, if you can go, try to do it. Don't let money stop you. There are grants, so many scholarships available that it just, try not to let it stop you, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for sharing. Next, we have Anna Rogers, who studied in Namibia in 2019.
Hi. Yeah, so I went on the 2019, so last summer, FLEAP herpetology program in Namibia, Africa. So this was a research-based kind of program. So it was 3 weeks in Africa, in Namibia. So there were 6 students in total, which was super nice because we all got to like work together and really get close. So we spent the first 10 days in Gobabeb, which is a research institute in the middle of the Namib Desert. And that's also where NASA does a lot of their Mars research currently. So we did the majority of our research there. And then we spent the following 2 days in Swakopmund, which is a city right next to the Namib Desert. And it's actually a kind of old German kind of town, which is very unique for a place in Africa. And that's more, we had more fun there. So we did like quad bikes and we did camel rides. So it was really fun. A lot of bonding happened there. And then we spent the following 8 days on a safari. And that's where we spend a majority of the time analyzing our data. And of course, looking at all the pretty animals and the lions and the zebras. But we also did a lot of work there too. And the entire time, we also kept a journal. So every single day we wrote down what we did and what research we did and what we analyzed, so that I still have that today, so I can look back and see exactly what I did every single day, which was super cool. So my project specifically was about the Pachydaculus rangii, which is like a really cute, tiny little pink gecko that live in the Namib Desert. And they're really cool because they have these web footings. So they use that to like kind of almost glide on top of the sand, which is really cool. So I focused on how they run in different light conditions. So we looked at dark, bright, and room light and how they run. So all of my trials were done in the middle of the night. So I became more of like nocturnal for about a week, which is really cool. And so we built a track using sandpaper, and then we ran, we personally built all the tracks, which was really cool. And I personally think that research abroad was a very unique opportunity for me, because you finally get to, use and look at, organisms and stuff like that and lizards that you would never see anywhere else. And we also got to see the differences between the Mojave Desert, which we have here in California. And so you can see there's a lot of similarities between the two deserts, but there's also a lot of differences. So there's plants and animals that you would see in Africa that you would never see over here. And it's also cool to see how the adaptations, even though they've never been, related at all at any point, they still have very similar adaptations, which is really cool. No real problems overall. It was pretty smooth, coming into the city. We had like guides the entire time, and our food was provided most of the time, especially since we were on a safari and then in the middle of the desert. There's no like grocery store that you can go to real quick, which is really cool. So the only like threats, I guess, were like nature threats. So if you're afraid of like getting eaten by a lion, don't go on a safari. And then one of our classmates, he did encounter a snake, but we kept a safe distance, so no one was hurt, and I never felt personally very unsafe at all. And so the impact for me, it was the first time I ever did field research, which was a really cool opportunity. And today, I personally now know that I want to do field research in the future, and I'm currently also part of the lab that the professor's lab that I went to with Africa. So after the program was over, I asked to be part of his lab. So I'm still currently in his lab, still doing research, which is really cool. So if you have the opportunity to do research abroad, definitely do it, because it'll give you a different outlook on research and the different opportunities that you have, for sure.
Thank you very much, Anna. Sounds like quite a safari you had. Next up is Chelsea Davenport.
Hello all, I'm Chelsea Davenport. I went on the Rome FLEAP last summer. It was actually my last quarter studying at UCR, so I've since graduated, and because of the trip and getting to experience what I did, it gave me a whole new view of what I was going to apply for. So now I've applied to like the Getty Museum and Natural History Museum, because I learned that I really do want to pursue research. I got an opportunity to study ancient Rome in Rome with Professor Salzman, who is amazing, and literally wrote the book on the calendar of ancient Rome. We got a chance to travel to Pompeii, Capri, Naples. We didn't get to go to Vesuvius because Stromboli went off a couple days before, but sometimes that's part of the trip. My experience was absolutely incredible, and I want to encourage anyone who has learning disabilities or disabilities of any sort to reach out to the programs that you're interested in, because I have nonverbal learning disorder, and I worked with my professor, and she made it so that I could take the class and didn't have to worry about not being able to retain the information. It was definitely it was impactful because it was an experience I never expected to have. I'm an older student. I thought there's no way I would fit in. There's no way I'd be able to afford it. There are grants. There are people who can help you do this. Just reach out. All you got to do is ask. One of the problems I faced while I was in Rome was that I did get sick. I caught a cold that snowballed into kind of like a flu, but because I had done the research on what pharmacies looked like over there, I was able to track down a pharmacy, even though the nurse on campus wasn't available over the weekend, and get the medication I needed. Just know what you're going into. Recognize that you do need to budget. Recognize that you won't be able to do stuff like eat out every night, but that's okay because you can learn to cook a new way, and 100% plan ahead, because it will make your trip so much more, not just successful and enjoyable, but efficient. You'll have more time to study and learn about what you're in love with if you're not constantly worrying about the next step and what you need to do next. And that's my experience. It was amazing.
Thank you very much for sharing, Chelsea. Next up is Julianne Renata.
Good afternoon, future adventurers looking to explore the field of studying abroad. My name is Julianne Renata, and I did my study abroad program. I faculty-led education abroad with Professor Covadonga Lamar Prieto from the UCR Hispanics department. And basically, it was a trip to go explore Spain. So we went to Madrid first, and we explored the southern part of Spain for the preliminary part of the research program. She wanted us to experience the full culture of Spain. So she wanted to take us to Madrid and a couple of cities on the way down to Sevilla, and then back up to where the primary research would take place. So my primary research took place in Asturias, which is her hometown, which is really cool because she knows a lot about what her hometown consists of, the places to eat, where to buy stuff, where not to buy stuff, where not to go. So she was really helpful in terms of letting us know exactly the places that we should visit and whatnot. But basically the primary research that I did was to analyze the processes and methods of sociolinguistic research and the different dialects of Spanish. So in that process, we would basically collect cultural artifacts such as manuscripts, journals, photo montages, inventory notebooks, a plethora of just different material that we were allowed to look at on behalf of the Museum of Asturian People, which is the museum where we primarily did our research, and they're in charge of, you know, making sure that all these manuscripts and codex stay intact and preserved very nicely. So we spent about 3 hours there looking at through all the manuscripts, journals, and all that, and then taking that information, translating it so that it's legible for our time, because this is manuscripts from the 1500s, the 1400s, the 1600s, when the civilization in that city was barely beginning and barely happening. We were able to track the progress that they made from the 1500s all the way till about like 1800s, which is really cool. You get to see the process over like 300 years, 400 years of different writings, scripts, pictures. It's incredible. So we would do that and then track the information, translate it, and upload it to a drive in which we would further collect all of our data And our professor offered the opportunity. So if you wanted to continue the research, you can continue the research in UCR through the MECA program. And basically you collect all this research and you track the historic artifacts from 1500s till now and present it at the research symposium. So that's really cool. If something that you're interested in, if you're interested in learning the history or sociolinguistics, I definitely recommend going to Spain. It's a fantastic time. While I was in Spain, I didn't encounter any specific problems per se. I do recommend that you you budget your money so that you can have enough money to buy a meal at a certain point, because my program, for example, didn't give you the 3 meals a day. They would give you a light breakfast and a lunch. So then you'd have to worry about dinner. So you gotta give yourself a budget of like, 10, 15 euros for dinner. And then you use that every day and kind of keep track of your budget. And that's the only main problem I feel like students have, is the budgeting problem. The most impactful thing for me going to Spain is just so incredible to go to, for me, that I've never been anywhere outside of the United States. So for me, going to a country that's 1,000 miles away, it's just incredible to see how welcoming the community is and how welcome the people are. The way they interact with foreigners is not the typical response that you would expect. So when you're there, everyone's like, hi, like, how are you? Where are you from? You're from the United States. That's so cool. Like, and they want to learn more about you. And it's very interactive. So I thought that was very impactful for me. And it even triggered me to even continue my undergraduate in international foreign policy, because I loved learning about European governments and economics as being part of the study abroad program. So I decided to do international foreign policy. And that was probably the biggest impact that pushed me towards that. Anything else I'd like to add for you is that if you're gonna go anywhere abroad, you have to really take advantage of the opportunity, like seize the moment. If you're gonna go somewhere, take 100% of the opportunity that you're gonna go, get all the grants that you need, the financial help. Because when you're there, you don't want to be self-conscious. You don't want to be reserved. You want to be able to explore and see all the different types of opportunities that they have in another country, instead of kind of withholding yourself and being a little bit more reserved in terms of budgeting and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend, if you're going to go, to take full advantage of the moment and seize the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julian. And thank you to all of you student panelists for sharing your valuable experience with prospective students. We do have a few in the room here today. I'm just going to give everyone a hand clap emoji. So those of you who joined us, welcome again. Did you have any questions for our panelists? Anything at all?
I have a question.
Okay. Oh, Dr. Andrews, yes.
Thank you. While y'all were talking, it occurred to me that I would be very interested to know what you thought about the fact that as undergraduate students, you did research. It's not necessarily common. I know you're supposed to do research papers and that kind of stuff, but this is a little more in depth what you carried out, especially because it was abroad. What is the value of this experience as an undergraduate? So you're not a graduate student yet, you're not expected to be doing research in a serious, heavy way. Why do it now?
This may not be the answer you're looking for, but I want to say it's highly addictive. It was, the more I learned and the more museums I got to go to, the more I wanted. And in fact, in that week and a half that I stayed after, I went back to the Capitoline Museum twice more because I had the pass that would let me go in. And I would go in there and I'd just take notes on everything because I was so curious that when I go home, I can now look everything up. Hey, I saw that. Hey, I studied that.
So research as a means of exploring the world around you and developing and or deepening, developing new interests and or deepening current ones. Yeah. Sophia, Stephanie, Julian, anything to say to that?
Yeah, so I'd like to add that the fact that when you're learning at the university, or for example at UCR, when you're learning in the lectures in the classrooms, you're getting the hard facts, you're getting the bullet points, you're getting the notes, you're getting the readings. but when you go abroad, it's a completely different educational atmosphere, because you get to go and experience firsthand what your teachers have been talking about since day one. You get to go experience, like their economic development. You get to go experience their different political systems, and you get to see that firsthand rather than reading about it in textbooks. So I think it's a very hands-on learning experience. So being able to do that as an undergraduate, I feel like it just gives you that extra, the extra like, I'm sorry, I'm looking up. It gives you the extra edge to be a well-rounded student, and to have more than just learning in the classroom, but to have that real life experience. And a lot of job markets that look for this type of experience, because they don't want to see just a student who did their 4 years and they didn't do anything in the university. They want to see a student who was actively learning and actively reaching for more than what they already had in front of them.
That's a great way
Yeah,
to
and
say
I
it,
can,
Julian.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay. I'm not sure. I don't know. I think my program was a little bit unique in the sense that we never went into a classroom. We never sat down at desks. Our class met literally all day, Monday through Thursday. So we would meet in the Commons at like 9:30, and we were done some days at 5, some days at 6, 7. Just depend on where we were going, but we were on our feet walking. So we were in the environment. And I think I mean, when you think about research, this is such a difference from being in the environment and getting to experiencing, for us, it's like crossing the London Bridge, right? Like we're crossing London, we can see the bullets. For those if you're interested in history, you can see the bullets that were hit during World War II when they were being attacked, right? So like there that you will never experience. And that kind of goes to what Julian was saying, actually also Chelsea. We all kind of have the same type of theme, I think, from our experience, but it's just like being able to walk. And yes, we had a project at the end of our that we had to turn in, but it was really open-ended, and Professor Eckett worked with us individually. There was no like set, like, okay, everyone has to write a paper or everyone has to do a presentation. It was very catered to what we personally wanted to do. So I had a friend who researched the history of toilets, like the sewer system, right? Which is super cool. I did societal changes, but I had a classmate who studied and learned all about like scandals, right? Like the royals had scandals. Trafalgar, who was this famous naval captain, he wasn't a captain, he was higher than that, but he was like an important guy, and he like lived in an open relationship with like another man and a woman. Like these are not things you're going to learn in a textbook or even in a bullet point, like Julianne, would you mention like in a classroom? Like these are not things that you're going to get. And a professor wouldn't even bring that up, right? Like in a classroom at UCR, he wouldn't be talking about that. I mean, maybe he would. Professor Eckett probably would, though. Let me just, this professor in particular, I can't imagine him talking about that, but we got that when we were in London. So that's just to add to the research aspect of it. Like Chelsea was saying, interest, I went to Hampton Court, which is where King Henry VIII, that was his primary residence. I saw his kitchen. It was crazy. The kitchens are just, you couldn't, unless you're in it, you can't really understand it. But like this quarter, I'm taking a Tudor history class now, and I'm writing a research paper on the Tudor England kitchens because it like caught my attention. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, and I get to add, to my paper, these personal experiences. So just to add for you guys thinking about going, it's to add to what Dr. Andrews was saying, it definitely gives you a special insight when you're thinking about research.
Thank you, Stephanie. We do have a question in the chat box from Elizabeth. To everyone, were you able to connect with students from the countries? And if so, were there any interesting commonalities or differences? Anna, you look like you want to answer.
Yeah, sure. I can talk about it. So when we were at Gobabeb, which is like the facility where they do the research in the Namib Desert, there are actually students that live there. So you can get different grants. So there's students from other international places that come there and study, and it's usually for about a year that they're at this location. And there's also more like local students that come and help out with the facility. And so they're all very interested in like the research too. And this research location, it's not just about like lizards and snakes, which is why we went there, but people are interested in like the fog that's there and the plants that are there. So like the people who were interested in the lizards, who were there studying, were like very like engaging with us and wanted to learn more about us, and showed us like, oh, like look at this really cool reptile here, and like, oh, we just caught the snake, like let me show you this one. So they were really interested in like hearing about our presentations. We actually presented to the students, and they gave us feedback. And they also shared some of their research and stuff like that, which was really fun. And then we had like this nightly kind of where we'd all eat together, and then we'd all go play volleyball together. So it'd be like the US kids versus all the other international kids, which was really fun. And then at another location we went to, is like this location where they actually rescue big cats. So they mostly have like leopards and stuff like that. And they had an international student from Germany who was there. And so he was there for a year and through their program. So we got to interact with him and why he was interested in, you know, working with these big cats and going to Africa. So everyone seems to have like the very similar idea, like they all want to learn more and like interact and connect, which is really great. So even though there were differences in our backgrounds, stuff like that, we all had a very similar goal.
Anyone else would like to answer that question?
Yeah. So when we were in Spain, the professor actually had us meet with students or peers that because it was her hometown, she had already peers that she has worked with when she goes to visit Europe and when she goes back to her hometown. She already has a stable group of peers. So what she would do is that she would have them come over to our classroom where we were putting data, and we got like about 2 hours to just ask them questions about their culture, and then they can ask us questions about our culture. And in reality, you think that because they live in Spain or because they live in Europe, it's going to be different, and it is. But for the most part, I mean, they still enjoy the same things that we do. You know, we had a student, he loves going on picnics on Saturdays and going playing soccer with his friends by the lake. I mean, that's something that we do here all the time, you know, and it's not as different as you would think. And we're all very connected and we have similar interests. You know, they still have a passion for music, just as we do here. Yes, they do have a little bit of a different method of transportation. But in reality, I mean, their model for transportation is saving the world from a lot of emissions. So, in my opinion, we should be adopting that here sometimes. So, but I think that when you learn about the other peers and when you start connecting with them, you realize that there's not much different between both of you, and that's when you guys really start making the connections and you make that relationship. Especially when you're there for so long, you know, you eventually start becoming from peers and you start becoming friends. You know, so yeah.
And I would, oh, I'm sorry. Could you mind if okay. Just quickly, the dorms that we were in, they weren't just students. We had kind of like groups. Well, they were students, but they were all different ages. And there were some people there who were leading groups who were our age, or I say that loosely because I'm much older than my classmates who were there, but, you know, just like in their 20s and 30s. And like Julian was saying, I mean, we watched the football game or soccer in the Commons, you know, like we were cheering for the US and they were cheering for, you know, England and that sort of thing. And you do, in a social, my class didn't really work with English students with respect to our study, but we did get to socially interact, and it was a really fun experience and something really unique that we don't really have a lot of English exchange students that come to UCR, I don't think. So that was kind of, you know, that was really, really fun, just getting to know them and having them take us to the local pubs that are great, and things like that I just wanted to add to on a social level as well as what everyone else was talking about in reference to studying.
Chelsea, was there anything you'd like to add as well?
Yes, I thought it was interesting that the apartment complex we were staying in actually housed UCLA students as well. So there was that opportunity there. Unfortunately, I didn't actually talk to any of them just because I tend to be really shy. So being in a foreign country where I don't speak the language kind of had me self-isolating as a protective measure. But in staying afterwards, I traveled to Florence and got to stay with a woman through Airbnb who was fluent in English, and we sat there one night and had this entire conversation on the United States government versus the Italian government, and it just gave me such an insight into how Italians view the United States that I never could have gotten from a news source, because it would have been biased. It would have been something that the news is reporting, not just day to day, hey, this is my healthcare experience versus what my healthcare experience in the US was. So I highly recommend that students stay either a little before or a little after if they can afford to, just because it gives you that extra depth of experience.
Thank you, Chelsea. And thank you again, everyone. Did any of the attendees have any other questions? Feel free to ask through your mic or in the chat box.
And don't be shy, because most of us are talkers and we want to talk.
I wondered if you students have questions for each other
Good one.
about the research, to bring it back to our topic at hand. You don't have to have questions for each other. It's okay. It just occurred to me you might actually be curious about each other's experiences. Chelsea, you do?
Yes, did any of y'all stay in contact with other people that you met? Because again, I was much older than everyone else in my group, so I didn't really stay in contact with most of the people from my group, but I made a friend while in Rome, and he's been giving me updates on the COVID situation because, he lives there.
Yeah, I did for sure. I was the oldest person in my trip. I'm 30. I was 38 at the time. I'm 39 now. But I for sure made connections that yeah, my friend and I purposely took courses this year together after meeting each other last year, and a couple of my friends who've graduated were on Instagram still, because we all followed each other on Instagram, and I relationships for sure. Like, that is definitely something. Yeah, it's almost like a condensed like crash course in becoming knowing people, right? Because you're with them. Well, we were with each other all the time. Like, we got up, we ate breakfast together. Well, our meals were not covered, by the way. We had like a few kind of picnics and then a farewell dinner. But so we were going to the cafes together. We were going to the stores together, picking up our food every night, because not nothing, but most things don't have preservatives. So like your food, and so we spent a lot of time together, and those relationships that I built definitely, and the age thing was an issue at the beginning, but I kind of got help from the faculty who were with us, and systems, I think, assistant or coordinator, I don't remember her title, but
You mean Professor
Amy,
Ecot's wife?
yeah, Amy, she was amazing. I didn't know if I wanted to just bring her up as like the wife, but
That's
she technically, yeah,
okay,
she,
Stephanie.
yeah, but Amy was amazing, and she was there, and she guided me through some of that social kind of issues that I had a little bit at the beginning, but they were really helpful and kind of eased that issue. And yeah, I have some of my best friends now I met on that trip. So yeah.
Yeah, Stephanie, I mentioned her role because we've considered it a strength of that program that those two were married. We had another program to Switzerland with a married couple, and it creates a really good, effective coordination for the students. So Yeah, not something to hide, something to, in fact, you know, celebrate that he has such an excellent partner that can support him, and the students, of course.
Yeah, she was a huge support. Uh, Definitely. There were so many times when I had to cry. Like, they're not gonna lie. Like, I have 4 kids. I was missing my kids, and you know, like, there were moments where I just had to, like. And Professor Eckett, I'd taken twice before, so the relationship was slightly different. So having Amy there, that I could have more of a personal relationship, and I talked to Professor Eckett too. We became closer as well, but just having his wife there, for sure, it helped. And they both lived in London. They were been married for a long time, and so they lived in London together, so they're really familiar with the city. And so yeah, that was definitely a benefit. I have to agree. I'm not familiar with any of the other programs. I just absolutely loved working with them. And yeah, and I think because Amy is an educator, she really brought a lot to, you know, her expertise really helped.
We have another question from Elizabeth. Did any one of you immerse yourselves in cultural, social events or participate in cultural traditions in your respective country? Please describe. Anyone like to take that?
I would consider coffee a tradition for Italy, and I was lucky enough to participate in that a couple times. I tried my very hardest to speak Italian, even though most of my pronunciation lent itself more to Spanish, since I know more Spanish than Italian. But there's something really magical about being able to order a cappuccino in a cafe in Rome without any assistance, and it can't be overstated.
Thank you, Chelsea. Anyone else like to share?
There were a lot of things that a lot of my classmates did, especially the pubs. Go there, you know, London is kind of famous for them, and there's a lot of in the Indian food, which is like top notch in London. But Pride was during the time we were there, and so we got to go to Pride in London, which, if you've never been to Pride, it's so much fun, and it was so unique. It was amazing. So that was one of the cultural things that I got to experience when I was there, and it's unlike anything, right? Like, its own unique place. So
Kind of an interesting example, Stephanie, of an event that began here and then went global that you got to experience elsewhere. That's pretty cool.
I wanted to say there was also a Pride celebration in Italy, I want to say when I was in Florence rather than when I was actually with the program. And because I didn't speak Italian, I had no clue what was going on, but you don't really need to, because the big flags will tell you exactly what they're celebrating. And even being on the outside, I just joined the group and nobody questioned it, and it was wonderful.
Terrific. We actually just had Professor Eckert join the session. I think his ears were burning. Any other questions or anything else that each of you would like to share with prospective students who are considering learning and or researching abroad?
As far as suggestions go, I've got a couple quick suggestions that I can hit if that's okay. Would be to look up the attractions in the area that you plan to go to, like right away as soon as you get accepted to the program, because there were a lot of exhibits in museums I couldn't see because it's like a 4 to 6 month waiting period just to get tickets. Plus, it's way more expensive if you wait until the last minute and get them. So I ended up missing out on a lot of opportunities. Travel light. You never know when you're going to have to move quickly. Like if you have a 6 a.m. flight out of town, it's going to suck having to pack up a whole lot of stuff. Plus, since I was traveling on, I ended up climbing up the stairs in Cinque Terre carrying a month and a half's worth of clothes. And let me tell you, I cried like a baby. Meanwhile, the lady I was with was bounding up the stairs, just laughing at me. So travel light if you can, but take an outfit for every occasion, because you may end up at a bar and you don't expect it and get to hang out with people. And so, you know, kind of contradicting myself there. But definitely look up where you're going to go, because there are going to be cultural norms and things that you're not going to expect. It's not going to be something that's just logical, because we grew up here and it's completely different. So things like having cash on you as opposed to relying on your card, or knowing what money type you're supposed to have. Just stuff like that is going to be way easier if you look it up ahead of time.
Thank you, Chelsea.
I had a couple of things I wanted to add,
Thank
actually.
you, Julianne. Sure.
So the failure on my part was that I didn't do it earlier. I did it towards the end of my second year, so the summer from second to third year. And I regret not doing it like first year or second year, because then I would have had 3 years of doing it like back to back. You know, it would have been cool. But I recommend for the students that are looking to apply, or looking to do research, do it now while you're still a freshman, while you're still a sophomore or junior, because you might want to go back and you have the opportunity to do so while you're at the campus. So if you push now, then you have the opportunity to go to a couple of places by the time you finish graduating. And it's a wonderful opportunity that I think everyone should experience at least one point in their lives, whether you do it through education abroad or through some other method. I think everyone should have the opportunity to go look at a different, diverse country and experience a different culture rather than what we're so used to here. Also, make sure you need to get a good phone data plan, because having your phone with maps on hand 24/7, not getting lost, is really important. Because when you don't have data and you get lost, you're going to be scrambling to get back to wherever your dorms are at. So definitely look up for a good data plan.
Can I add to that? Because that is an extremely good point, and I lost my phone while I was there. So don't completely rely on your phone either. Or make sure that you have a backup, because I had to buy a cheapy phone while I was there, because Virgin Mobile here in the US doesn't let you switch your SIM card. So just be aware of your phone situation. That is such a good point.
Thank
Yeah,
you all.
I was going to add, because I feel like we all forgot about this until Julian brought it up. The cell phone situation, ask Professor Eckert's here, so he was really helpful with this, but ask your professor like what service they use, because they most likely know, because they've been there, they've lived there. Because yeah, the cell phone, we all had different servers, a lot of us, and some people had great service in the city, some not so much. And so like we kind of had that issue, and we spent a lot of time in the underground. So that's like basically their subway stations. And most of us didn't have service under there. So screenshot is your friend. So screenshot your maps and your tube, like the direction you have to go if you're in London. So yeah, the cell phone thing is like pretty freaking huge. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, being prepared ahead of time, researching, and there's something to be said about paper maps. Those are still handy.
So, Sophia, did you have anything to add? Any tips you wanted to share?
Yeah, sure. So I guess when you first get accepted, like make sure you know the area. So we had a bunch of like equipment that we needed to order. So like mosquito nets and different repellents and different like just like we had a long list of stuff we needed. So just make sure like as soon as you get accepted, you start ordering that stuff. But that's I guess pretty unique for our situation. And then also Namibia only does, you can only really trust like cash over there, and there's no really ATMs. So when you get to the airport, like I wish I would have taken out more cash, like take out more than you can expect, because you can always switch it back. So just something to have like money on hand, because I did have to end up borrowing some dollars, which was definitely not the greatest thing in the world. Yes. And then also, as Chelsea said, just pack light. So we were camping pretty much the entire time in tents, and we had to carry our luggage everywhere. So we couldn't have those nice little rolly backpacks. So we had to like backpack and carry it everywhere. So just make sure you pack light. Yeah.
Y'all who have traveled more than me could probably back this up in a better way, but you may want to get your money exchanged through your bank as opposed to the kiosks inside the airport, because I'm under the impression they're going to charge you a lot more money to exchange your money once you're in the airport than if you did it through your own bank. Am I correct on that? Because that was my experience.
That's usually the case. But some ATMs you're pulling from your own account.
Mhm.
Some you're not, but yeah, it's either a cash station or a cash station plus, I guess I would say. But sure, yeah.
So with the time that we have left, thank you all for the suggestions, recommendations, and feedback on experiences that you had abroad. For those of you who are in attendance right now and are contemplating learning abroad, clearly there are lots of skills and experiences to be had abroad. More and more studies are showing that when you go on these high impact practices like education abroad, like interning or researching, even if it's local, when you involve yourself in these high impact practices, you're strengthening your set of skills that are going to be very useful in the 21st century economy. Things like communication skills, teamwork, leadership, and of course, tolerance for ambiguity. So please consider participating in a high impact practice such as researching or learning abroad, or interning, or getting more involved with your student organizations or volunteering. All of these are shown to increase all of these 21st century skills. So we mostly spoke about the faculty-led education abroad program, aka FLEAP. All of our students today participated again in the 2019 FLEAP last summer. We are still in the middle of putting together, gathering proposals for summer 2020. FLEAP, the offerings change every year because it's dependent on faculty interest and availability. So it's to be seen what will be offered next summer. We're very excited to see who submits a proposal, and we'll hope to publish that information later on this academic year. In addition to FLEAP, we also have 2 other options that students can look at for other research opportunities or learning abroad opportunities through UCEAP as well as OAP. And this is just some more information about FLEAP. Some of the highlights include you're remaining enrolled at UCR, you're taking 2 UCR classes, gaining UC credits, and you're able to use your eligible federal, state, and financial aid. And as many of the students today have shared, they all started early, they started saving early. There's a lot of scholarships and grants available, but you have to do the research, ask the questions, and we're here to help and support you in that. And a really big highlight, of course, for FLEAP is you're going to be in small classroom settings, no more than 25 students. And so there is a great opportunity for you to closely interact with not only your faculty, your TA, but also your peers as well. And basically how to get started is you can just point your phone to the screen, and this will take you to our My UCR Abroad portal, where you can create a profile and start researching programs and apply even. The soonest you can apply is, of course, next summer, and those applications, as I said, will not be open yet until later on this fall. So if you have any questions, you can certainly email us, give us a call. We do have our office phones forwarding to our mobile. You can also, you can also attend our open advising sessions from Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Or you can also make an appointment with an advisor through the My UCR Abroad portal. Was there anything, any last words that the panelists would like to share, or any other questions from students that are in attendance today? Chelsea.
Don't let anything stop you. If you want to do this, make it happen. I absolutely did not think that this was something I'd ever be able to do, and it completely changed my life, as cliche as that sounds.
Chelsea, I think when a cliche keeps getting repeated, I mean, that's how it becomes one. But I would agree with you. Every time I hear a student say those words, they're as heartfelt as you're saying them now. So it does sound cliched, but I know it's true.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you everyone, student panelists, Dr. Andrews, Professor Eckhart for being here today, and our student participants, attendees. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with us this afternoon. We really hope that you consider learning abroad at some point in your undergraduate future, or if not, finding yourself abroad in some shape or form, and we'd be happy to connect with you and make that happen. Thank you, everyone.